Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast, and my name is Naz. Let's talk about Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. At the last UFC Fight Night, the first one of the new year, 2022, Calvin Kattar defeats Giga Chikadze. It was a big upset win in a lot of people's eyes, and it was a massive win for Calvin Kattar because of his previous fight that he had against Max Holloway. A lot of people counted him out in this fight, thought that after the Max Holloway fight, the one-sided affair that one was, that the same would happen in this fight. Even Giga Chikadze was calling out the champion Alexander Volkanovski even before fighting Calvin Kattar. He still had a big test in front of him, and he was looking past Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar did a lot of great things in this fight, and one thing that the commentators really pointed out was the fact that he implemented and showed his takedowns in this fight. By using those takedowns, by showing that he's willing to do that in this fight, I think put it in the back of Chikadze's mind that this guy is not just going to strike with me at a very close range, where Giga was really looking for his leg kicks and all that kind of stuff, but he was, and I'm talking about Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar was fighting in such a close range, but because he implemented a couple of those takedowns in the first round, where Giga slipped in the rounds afterwards, where he just went for the takedown. He went for a couple single legs that he didn't get Giga to the ground, but he showed that it was part of his game plan. Whenever he would get close, I think at that point, Giga was looking for Calvin to shoot for a takedown, to go for those single legs. Whenever he got him up against the fence, Giga had it in the back of his mind that not only do I have to look out for these shots coming to my face, that this guy might take me down again. And with Calvin's wrestling background, he's able to just mix that up in his game. He's able to mix up the striking. He's able to throw takedowns every once in a while. And I think Giga wasn't ready for that. And once it happened a couple times, it was just something in the back of his mind. But I think another big thing that Calvin Kattar implemented in this fight, which was a big surprise, but it was something shown with these strikers that like to throw kicks and head kicks and all that kind of stuff, is the pressure that Calvin Kattar was giving. Always moving forward. There wasn't any point where he was moving back. Even when he got some amazing strikes, the elbows and all that kind of stuff, he kept on moving forward. He wasn't one of those fighters that was happy with the result that he got. Meaning that, yes, he got a big strike, he got a big shot in, cut up Giga, but for him, that wasn't enough. He kept on moving forward and even took a bunch of shots to the face, which shows how resilient Calvin Kattar is, especially taking a historic amount of strikes in his previous fight. He wasn't worried about that. The mental fortitude that he had to put that Max Holloway fight behind him, and for him to go into this fight and totally forget about his last fight. I think that was a major thing that helped him in this one. He put the past behind him where it needed to go and didn't listen to anybody, none of the naysayers, nobody in his interview with Ariel Helwani, he mentioned that there was a lot of stuff that he wanted to talk about, but is now going to bring up, meaning that he was following it, but it wasn't a major thing that he was thinking about all the time. For him, Calvin Kattar, this fight was everything built up from the Max Holloway fight, from on the all the onslaught that he got from online, all of the comments he got. This fight showcased everything that was building up from that previous one. Especially if you think about it, and I keep on thinking about it, that fight with Max Holloway, it was one of the first on ABC. It had such a big marketing push behind it. There was that whole thing about who's the best boxer in the UFC, and both Max Holloway and especially Calvin Kattar at that time was really pushing the fact that he thought that he was the best boxer in the UFC. After what he did before that fight with Max Holloway, meaning who he defeated before that fight, he was showcasing his boxing skills. He's not this person that puts in a lot of those leg kicks, a lot of those body attacks, and he does it with his boxing. And you could see it in this fight, how much he relied on it and how much he used it once he implemented the takedowns. And I think a lot of fighters should take from this game plan when you're facing these strike heavy fighters to mix up and throw in a couple takedowns. Now, you could be lulled into the situation, which Calvin Kattar was not, where he would go blow for blow with Giga. And that happens to a lot of fighters, where they just are in the moment. They don't care. They throw the game plan out. But this guy, Calvin Kattar, had the game plan set from the beginning, maybe months in advance. And by reviewing a bunch of tape, you can see that the game plan that he implemented is a blueprint now for Giga, unless he switches something up. Giga did show a lot of heart in some of those later rounds. It was pretty close until those takedowns were implemented. Giga was really, he put it all on the line. You got to give your hats off to this guy. He didn't let the fight really sway his emotions. He didn't give up at any point. So I think that you got to give your hats off to Giga Chikadze and really appreciate what these two fighters did, especially on a card like this. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. This wasn't the biggest card in the world. This wasn't the most spectacular UFC Fight Night. But these guys, Giga took a big chance on Calvin Kattar, where he could have fought for the belt. I mean, he would have never known that Max Holloway would have got injured or whatever happened to him like has happened. He would have never known that, honestly. But this is a guy that was on a pretty good streak, and now Calvin Kattar defeated him. Calvin Kattar is back up there in the rankings at featherweight. I think he's like at the top of the division now. He's one of the primetime fighters in that division. Calvin Kattar has really shown the resilience it takes to be a future champion in this division. I mean, fighting the likes of Stevens, fighting the likes of Ige, Dan Ige, and Max Holloway, even though he lost that one. If you listen to this podcast a lot, you know that I'm a big proponent of not just winning the fight, but being in the cage with said fighter. Meaning that just because Calvin Kattar lost his fight against Max Holloway doesn't mean that he didn't gain anything from that fight. And I think that also applies meaning that also applies to losses. Meaning that if you took a big beat down, that stuff compounds. And I think that people don't recognize that fact as much as they should. The beatdown that you could take mentally and physically in these fights, from the Max Holloway fight, for example, against Calvin Kattar, that was his time to shine against a former champion. And the one-sided avalanche that Max Holloway threw at Calvin Kattar could give a lot of fighters a mental, it could be horrible for their mental state. Horrible. But Calvin Kattar just went into the lab and did what he had to do and won this fight handedly near the end of it. Now, for both of these fighters, I think that we gotta look at, like, for example, Giga. We can't do the same thing that we did to Calvin, meaning that we can't just say, okay, we're gonna throw this guy away now. He's still a dangerous fighter. He's still someone that could cause a lot of damage to a lot of fighters. I mean, if you look at the top of this list, Giga is now at number 8. Calvin's at number 5. I mean, if we look at the 5 above Calvin Kattar, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, obviously Max Holloway's before Brian Ortega, but he's out. And then we got the Korean Zombie, and then we got Calvin Kattar. I mean, Calvin Kattar could still fight one of these top guys. I mean, he's never fought some of these guys, and it can make for an amazing fight that could push him to the top. I don't think that he gets a title shot right away. I don't think many people think that he gets a title shot right away, but the fights that Calvin Kattar has next are going to be ones that you got to watch out for. And I mean, Giga is always fun to watch. The fights above him against Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett. I mean, Josh Emmett could fight for the belt maybe somewhat soon. Who knows what's next for him? But Giga could still put on some amazing fights. And, honestly, there's some fights below Giga that he could take again. And they could make for some ridiculous fights. Like Sadiq Youssef against Giga would be amazing. A powerhouse like Youssef going against a striking sniper in Giga would be spectacular. I mean, Dan Ige could do it. Bryce Hall versus Giga, striker versus a grappler, classic fight would be amazing. So again, I don't think we should put any of these fighters back into the queue and put them at the back of the line. These two are spectacular fighters, and they put on a great show for us at the beginning of 2022. What an amazing fight. What a great way to start the year. I love it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. If you can like, subscribe, hit the bell notification and all that good stuff, that would help a lot. If you can give 5 stars and give a review on the different podcast networks, and you can also listen to it there, that'd be amazing. Send an email, hello@thebodypunch.com, and we can chat about this. We can chat about this in the comments, wherever you want, but really interested to know your thoughts. Thank you again for listening. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. My name is Naz. Bye.